Okay, let's set the scene. It's early 2026, and the entire Middle East is holding its breath. For years, we've seen these simmering tensions, these proxy wars, these truces that never really seem to hold. The whole region is balanced on a knife's edge. So what happens when that balance is finally lost? Let's get into how this regional tinderbox could ignite into a full-blown global crisis. Mark the date on your calendar, February 28th. A day that started out just like any other, but, it ended with the whole world watching, as a regional crisis just exploded into open warfare, dragging in global powers and threatening to completely redraw the map. So how did it all kick off? Well, the trigger was this coordinated pre-dawn military operation. It caught pretty much everyone by surprise and set off an immediate, and I mean devastating, chain reaction. It all begins at 9:27 in the morning, Tehran time. Suddenly, you have explosions rocking the capital and other Iranian cities. Before the dust has even had a chance to settle, President Trump is on the airwaves, announcing a joint US-Israeli mission with a name that tells you everything you need to know: Operation Epic Fury. The goal? To take out Iran's entire missile arsenal. But Iran, well, they don't wait around. Within hours, their own missiles are in the air, streaking towards Israel and lighting up American bases across the Gulf. And just like that, in a matter of moments, the region is at war. And just in case there was any doubt about the mission's intent, President Trump's words were incredibly blunt and crystal clear. We are going to annihilate their navy. Look, this isn't some limited surgical strike. This is a flat-out declaration of a major military campaign, and it's aimed at absolutely crippling a nation's military power. But a fire this big doesn't just start from a single spark. To really understand the explosion on February 28th, you have to look at the landscape of the region, which, let's be honest, had been a powder keg just waiting for a match for years. Now, at the heart of this regional power struggle is something called the axis of resistance. And what's really fascinating here is that this isn't a traditional alliance. Think of it more like a web of state and non-state groups, from Hezbollah in Lebanon all the way to the Houthis in Yemen. It allows Iran to project its power way beyond its own borders, creating all these friction points all across the Middle East. So here's the crucial takeaway. This conflict did not happen in a vacuum. The region was already cracking under immense pressure. In Syria, the collapse of the Assad regime left this huge, dangerous power vacuum. Iran, feeling backed into a corner after an earlier fight, made the pretty fateful decision to ramp up its uranium enrichment to 90%. And that's weapons grade. Over in Gaza, a shaky ceasefire just created another power vacuum, a state of permanent instability where nobody was really in charge. And get this, even the supposed allies weren't on the same page. And this slide illustrates that point perfectly. Just take Yemen. You had Gulf Cooperation Council members, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, who were effectively playing for opposite teams. Riyadh wanted to see a single, unified Yemen. Meanwhile, the UAE was actively funding and supporting southern separatists. This isn't just a simple disagreement. It's a deep strategic rivalry that just adds another layer of chaos to an already volatile part of the world. But this isn't all just about military might. You have to follow the money, because underpinning all of this are some massive economic ambitions and even deeper vulnerabilities. The region is really a story of two completely different economic realities. So on one hand, you've got the Gulf states. Just look at this chart. GCC countries are forecasting a really strong 4.4% growth. They're pouring their high oil revenues into these huge projects like Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, trying to build economies that aren't just about oil. But for the other oil exporters, the picture is way, way bleaker. We're talking predicted growth of less than half that, at a really sluggish 2%. And here's the catch. All that growth is incredibly dependent on stability. This quote just nails the region's economic fragility. The Red Sea, it isn't just a body of water. It's a critical artery for global trade. And its security isn't guaranteed anymore. It's held together by fragile deals with groups like the Houthis, which makes it a constant, high-stakes economic gamble. The risks go way beyond just shipping lanes. In places like Iran and Jordan, they are literally running out of water. This isn't just a development problem anymore, it's a full-on national security threat. And Syria's economy, well, it's effectively collapsed. It's shrunk by an unbelievable 87% since 2011. And these aren't just numbers on a page. When the taps run dry and the economy is in freefall, it creates desperation. And desperation, well, that's the dry kindling that fuels unrest and ignites these regional conflicts. So, We've covered the geopolitics and we've talked about the economics, but what so often gets lost in these high-level discussions is the devastating real-world impact on millions and millions of people. This right here is why it all matters. Before this latest war even started, the situation was already an absolute catastrophe. 239 million people. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many men, women, and children across the region already needed urgent humanitarian aid just to survive. And conflict just completely tears apart the systems that people rely on. In Gaza, for instance, after past conflicts, nearly every single hospital, we're talking 94% of them, was either damaged or destroyed. That means no trauma care, no care for expecting mothers, just no hope for over 2 million people. And just look at the domino effect when aid funding gets cut. It's a chain reaction of human suffering. First, over 6,600 health facilities are disrupted, and that cuts off care for 53 million people. That then means 14 million kids suddenly miss out on vital vaccinations, and that in turn leads to 2.4 million people, most of them children, facing severe acute malnutrition. One crisis just triggers the next, and it all spirals out of control. And yet, in the middle of this collapse, there are people who stay. This image, it represents the thousands of local health workers and international aid organizations who are still doing their work, often under fire. They're the last lifeline for so many communities that it feels like the world has just forgotten. So, after the strikes, after the retaliation, where does this all leave the Middle East? The region is now caught in a state that analysts have given a very specific and, frankly, very ominous name.
It's called an armed peace. And don't let the word peace fool you. This is not the absence of war. Not really. It's a kind of stability that's held together by duct tape and threats, where every alliance is temporary and every truce could just break tomorrow.
And that leaves us with the critical question, not just for 2026, but for all the years to come. Is this volatile, transactional, armed peace really the new normal? Is this the best the region can hope for? Or is all of this just the quiet before the next, even more devastating storm? The future, for now, remains unwritten.